Welcome to the Business Development Podcast, brought to you by the Global Business Development Association, delivering the strategies and tactics to boost your career and corporate growth.
Hello, BD pros, and welcome to the Global Business Development Association podcast called What is Business Development? Hey, let me ask you something. Marketing is tough, and there are some overlooked concepts in marketing that are extremely powerful, and they're science-backed about what is in the minds of your prospect and customers. Wouldn't you like to know what some of those tactics are? Well, today we're going to talk about them, and you may be thinking, hey, this is marketing? I thought this was business development. Well, look, marketing is a key teammate for all business developers. We're all on the business development go-to-market team. So understanding marketing not only makes you a better teammate, it also helps your own business development functions, because oftentimes business developers are applying scientifically proven marketing best practices to be able to succeed. Now, if you want to learn some of those scientifically proven methods, you can get your copy of the Business Development Body of Knowledge at the Global Business Development Association website or on Amazon, and that has all of the content you need as a business developer to learn and take the exam for the Business Development Professional Certification. Now, let's get back to the show and let's introduce our guest today. Our guest is Ulli Applebaum. And Ulli is an internationally recognized and award-winning marketing and brand strategy consultant and trainer with over 25 years of experience creating business building brand strategies around the world. Now, prior to launching brand strategy in his training boutique, which is first the Trousers, then the Shoes, incorporated in 2014, he held senior strategy roles at some of the world's top advertising agencies, including head of strategy at GBDA Germany and Leo Burnett Chicago, and global strategy director at Fallon Worldwide and Sapient Nitro. He's contributed to 7 Effies, and he has award excellence in a number of other award areas, creating strategies for a number of Fortune 500 companies. And he's also the author of multiple books. And today we're going to talk about his latest work, The Science of Brand Associations: Win Minds, Win Markets. And this book helps you address that question of what if everything you thought you knew about brand building was missing the most essential ingredient? Well, I can't wait to hear what those essential ingredients are today. And the Science of Brand Associations is a science, evidence-based guide to the one concept that silently drives every successful brand. And that's the network of meanings, experiences, and feelings living in your customer's memory and mind. Well, Ulli, thank you for joining us in our minds today as business developers. And I can't wait to hear about everything you have packed into your fantastic book, The Science of Brand Associations. Ulli, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Tony. Very excited to be on your show.
Now, Ulli, I always like to tell people, how did you get into the profession you're in today? You have an exceptional career in marketing and wonderful success, but how did you get into that profession?
To be honest, I stumbled into it more than anything else. I did a bachelor degree in Belgium. I'm German, but I spent my teenage years in Belgium, did my bachelor degree in business administration there, and then joined a master program, MBA program, which at the time was very unique, a European style program where you spend a year in Paris, a year in Oxford, and a year in Berlin, and study in those 3 languages and use the educational style of those 3 countries. Today, every university has an international program. At the time, it was very unique. And there I started basically writing my master thesis about just-in-time production management. And midway through this thesis, I think it was at the end of my second year, I realized I'm way more interested in people. And I would typically read the interview section in magazines, everything that I would be interested in biographies. I was interested in the way people think and what behave what changes their behavior, how what makes them feel certain things. And I realized that the best place to discover this was in marketing and slash advertising, and more specifically in account planning. So as I said, mid within those 3 years of studying at this MBA program, I told my tutor that I'd like to change my thesis content, and he said I'm completely crazy because I had 1 year to catch up 3 years of work, but I did it, and I was passionate ever since. And ever since, with science, with your own experience, you learn more and more about people, about what drives them, and all these kind of things, and that has been guiding me ever since, whether it was in Europe, working around the world, or in the United States for the last 20 years. And to be honest, it doesn't matter to me if we're talking about, women washing their hair and the psychology that's behind that, or if we speak about, hydraulic lubricants. And at the end of the day, it's all about people, their behavior, and what makes them think, and what makes them choose specific options over others. And it's an endless well of knowledge and insight that probably do this the next 30 years as well, and keep as excited as I am today.
Yeah, well, human drive and understanding what drives humans is critical for success, not just in marketing, but also business development. So,
Mhm.
Uli, I'm curious, what drove you to write this book?
Well, the interesting thing, Tony, is if you Google brand associations on Amazon, right? If you don't Google, you search it on Amazon. Not one single book pops up. Not one single book out of the millions Amazon is offering focuses on brand associations. And yet, brand associations, a couple of people call it, and I like it, so I use the term, is sort of like the operating system of successful brand. Because um, brand associations are nothing more than the memories you have about a specific offering. And these memories can be facts, information, this can be experiences. I went to McDonald's, I interacted with this vendor. That's a memory that's going to build into my brain. Or feelings. I really liked the interaction with, that group of people, or I hated the food in that restaurant. Those are all feelings that are associated to your brand. So brands are basically memory networks, or I call them association networks. Um, and without that, you don't have a brand, because if it's not a trace in your brain, something you remember about an offering, the brand doesn't exist. It's null. It's there is nothing there. So this is the single most sort of like vehicle of meaning of a brand in your brain that no one has taken the time to analyze. So I'm going to be honest. When I first saw that there is no book on Amazon, I thought maybe I'm wasting my time here. But then I've started to realize as well that a lot of the thought leaders I'm following in marketing, a lot of the marketing academics, the big ones, all use the concept and notion of brand association, but always to explain something else. And the concept has been in play for the last 30 years. But no one ever decided to curate the existing scientific and evidence based knowledge around brand associations in one book. So I made it my mission to be that one person. So, and I said, this book is not my opinion or my experience. It's really just based on what does science tell us about, memory and memory formation, and what is the marketing evidence out there, the principles that are data driven or data supported that tell us what works and what doesn't work. So it's really a curation. Of course, I have my ego, so I've sprinkled a bit of my own experience and stories, but it's really an evidence-based um, curation of the existing knowledge around brand memories and brand associations.
Yeah, well, I love what you said about stories. First
Mhm.
of all, your personal story, but how you indicate that all consumers, all prospects, all customers, they create a story in their own mind. That brand association story that follows the typical 3-part story arc that we talk about in the business development body of knowledge, created by Aristotle. And then there are scientists like Kahneman that evolved that in modern eras where, the prospect is their own hero of the story. They are the prime character, and they have a low point where they start, they have the high point, and then they have the solution that follows. And so that's the story that they remember. Those low points, the lowest low point, the highest high point, and then the winning story at the end. So I can't wait to jump into this, Ulli, because obviously you are an expert in this topic, and I'm always fascinated by the science of storytelling, but more importantly, the minds and the neuroscience of humans. So let's dive right into this, and let's talk about your first top takeaway or tactic from your book.
Yeah, so I think one thing to bear in mind is that brands to succeed, and I think that's the case in business development, you need to create an expectation towards the offering, or you need to create predisposition. And what I mean with that is, in an ideal world, a brand needs to build awareness and association in the mind of a potential customer before he's shopping in the market. So um, the point being is, like, if you build awareness for an offering in the B2B world, in the B2B world, doesn't really matter. You don't only target people that are currently in the buying cycle, you target most potential customers in your field, basically. And the reason is, if you if I knock at your door, Tony, and say, hey, you don't know me, we've never talked before, you didn't know what I offer, I'd like to introduce you to my services, there's going to be a huge difference than if you've seen me on LinkedIn, you followed my post, you've seen my thought pieces, you know that I'm a strategist, you know that I work with this type of clients, you know that there are positive reviews. And then I knock at your door and say, hey, Tony, I'd like to introduce myself. Then you'd be like, hey, I know you. I've been following. I've heard of you. I've seen you. Yes, I'd be happy to talk to you. Or if you are buying consulting service, you'd be like, I was just thinking about getting a consultant, and you're knocking at my door at the perfect time. So this predisposition, there's actually data that shows that this predisposition represents 70% of future sales. It's just mind-blowing. So without building this awareness amongst a group of potential customers that are not necessarily immediate customers, without doing that, you hold yourself away from 70% of your future sales, which is just mind-blowing. So step number one is build predisposition. That's what a brand is. Predisposition to purchase.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. The brand association where they are predisposed, the brand predisposition. I like that. And I think what's interesting, can you say that figure again? 70%?
70% of future growth of a brand is driven by this predisposition. So
wow. And that predisposition is before first contact. Right?
That is
That's
before
where
I decide I'm going to buy a new car, for example, or I'm going to buy baked beans, or I need a cybersecurity consultant for my company. If I am aware of the cybersecurity company or a car brand because it stands out with its communication, I'm going to be more predisposed to go with those brands than with, I wonder what new brands of cars out there. And you need to research. Our brain tries to find shortcuts, and that's one of the processes we tap into, right? 70%. It's a study done by Kantar, the global research company, so it's more than valid and legit. And it's just mind-blowing. But most people don't think in those terms. So you're investing not only in current like immediate customer acquisition, you're investing into future customer acquisition with your brand building efforts.
Yeah, and I also like what you said, because oftentimes people will say, "Well, that's the job of marketing, is to create awareness, within the marketplace, within the community, during the awareness phase of the customer journey, when the customer indicates interest, some sort of intent to buy a product and explore solutions, that's when they enter the activation phase, which is the domain of business developers, prospect developers specifically. But I tell people, look, the business developers themselves are also part of that awareness phase.
Yeah.
Right. And then in what you indicated, I think was a really interesting tactic. As a matter of fact, I just reposted about this on LinkedIn today, or commented about somebody's post about this on LinkedIn today. And the point was that the individual was making, and it was a fantastic point. They put a whole process together that says, you need to have employees of your company be active on LinkedIn. And I specifically said, yes, business developers have to be actively involved in LinkedIn, providing value almost on a daily basis, because you are creating and contributing to your prospect predisposition, your community's predisposition, where they first of all recognize the brand, but then they also recognize you as the individual. And so when you have first contact with them, they say, oh yeah, I know Tony, and I know Tony's company. Oh yeah, I know Ulli, and I know Ulli's company.
Yeah.
And I'm very familiar with that, and that's my safe zone. And these other possible, I either I don't know who they are, or I'm not as familiar with them.
Yeah.
And humans, as you say, we love for the shortcuts. We love the shortcuts because they're safe, and we are predisposed in a cognitive bias to move with shortcuts. What's safe? What's familiar? That's what humans want. We drive to safety. And the easiest way to safety is a preferred path. So this is so fascinating. Okay, Ulli, build that predisposition. I love that. That's takeaway number one. What's takeaway number two?
So takeaway number two, and again, it's so basic, right? But I've noticed that with my own client or potential clients that come to see me, is you need to be crystal clear on what you want to be in the category, what you're standing for. Or coming back to my book, is you need to be crystal clear on the 3 or 4 associations you want to create in the mind of your prospects, your immediate customers and your prospects. And you'd be surprised by how few companies have this clarity of what they want to be. And you'd be surprised by how few companies are aligned internally on what these 3 or 4 associations should be. And my logic is, how can you expect consumers to have a clear image of what you are if you don't have a clear image of what you are, or if you don't have an internal alignment on what you guys want to be? So this clarity, and a simple way to do it is, again, there's so many frameworks, so many strategy frameworks. Is clients look at me strange when I first come up with my association analogy and put like little mind map on a slide, because it looks so simple and so almost childish. But if you're not able to write down what are the 3, 4, or 5 associations on a piece of paper or in a mind map of what you want to be, you lack this clarity. And if you put those down, it changes the way you look at your brand building, because you can look at, is what I'm doing, are my LinkedIn posts aligned with these 3 or 4 associations? Am I building them or supporting them, or am I going completely off track? If I repost an article, or if I do a piece of advertising, or if I cooperate with a partner, am I reinforcing and building those associations or not? And we're not talking about 26, 27. We're talking about 3 or 4 important, relevant associations that you need to build. And this clarity often determines, there's another stat about the clarity, which I think, I forgot what the percentage was, but it was also in the 60, 70% of, like, if you are going to be more successful if your customer, 60 to 70% more successful if your potential customers have a clear sense of what you have to offer. And it sounds so basic and so fundamental, but you'd be surprised by how few companies are able to really crystallize this, call it desired positioning statement, or desired what they want to be in the future. It's just insane. So create predisposition with crystal clear clarity is, for me, step number 2.
All right. Okay. So step number 2 is that crystal clear clarity. about how you want to be perceived in the community. And that's, as you indicated, it's a struggle for a lot of companies because they have a lot of competing interests. They want to grow. They want to try, some want to try to be everything to everybody. And that effectively does not work. It dilutes the brand predisposition because the prospect has no idea what you really stand for. And so it makes it challenging for them. Now, Ulli, this is a challenge for so many business developers listening because let's face it, you're in the activation phase, marketing, senior leadership. They should be focusing on this, but oftentimes, as you indicated, they don't or they struggle with it. So business developers are kind of left up to their own devices. Let's dig into this. Let's say, okay, so I'm a business developer. I'm posting on LinkedIn, or maybe I'm posting on another social channel. If I don't have clarity from leadership, how should I position myself as a business developer? And I'll just share with you my story. My perspective is position yourself as an industry expert in whatever vertical that you are passionate about. And that may not be your role today, but it may be your role tomorrow, or what you find as your vision 10 years from now, as where you want to be. And my personal position is, look, talk about what you're passionate about, what you know about, and what your personal brand should be. That brand, what your personal brand predisposition should be, so that anytime you reach out to somebody, they go, oh yeah, Tony's the expert in this vertical. Ulli's the expert in marketing and brand association. He talks about it all the time, every time, consistently. Brand association, brand association, brand association. Ding, it's Ulli. I must call Ulli, right?
That's exactly right.
So I guess you agree with that then, right?
I agree with that. I think you
corporate
need
brand
to
isn't okay.
Yeah, you need to add value on an ongoing basis. What I would do though is I would circle back to the predisposition part, because I've done a lot of work in IT and software development. A lot of my clients are in that field. And I've done a lot of stakeholder interviews with corporate buyers. I've talked to hundreds of buyers over the last few years to see what is it, decision-making criteria and all that stuff. And one thing I've learned, which we don't often talk about, is that a lot of potential buyers, before they knock at your door, if you're in the B2B world, they have already this predisposition. That means they will have checked you out before. They will ask your peers what they think about you and what the experience is working with you. They may check in with organizations like Gartner and look at the Magic Quadrant. So the point is, these companies will have already a clear sense, oh, I'd really like to work with Tony, great reputation. Maybe he's not good at the follow-through. I'm making stuff up here, right? But overall, he does a great job. When I reach out to you, I have this in my mind. So I don't need, and a lot of companies make this mistake, and BD people, I think, make this mistake, will start to say, Tony, thanks for reaching out. Let me give you my boring 1 hour generic credential presentation. I'm going to bore you to death. We started in 73 and these are all the capabilities we have, blah, blah, blah. No, I think what you should start to do is start to say, talk to me about your problem. What are you trying to solve? And how can we help you solve those problems? So you put it on, and then you'll hear what they've heard about you already. You'll hear about their situation. And then you'll be able, with your category expertise, to come up with a recommendation. And you basically, they open the doors for you. I think that's one of the most powerful way to approach it. And in the B2C world, it may not be, Heinz Ketchup may not have an opportunity to have a single conversation with Tony to convince him to sell you a bottle. But as a strategist, you can understand what is relevant to Tony when he's buying a bottle of ketchup. And this relevant driver needs to be in one of the associations you create. In the B2B world or in the BD world, I can ask you, Tony, what are you looking for? What is the problem you're trying to solve? I'm basically asking you to tell me what matters the most to you. And then once I know that, I can design my script around here. Let me tell you why my solution is the best suited to solve the problem that you currently have. Way more effective to play with this predisposition and then let the potential customer talk to you about the issues they have to address, than say, let me bore you to death with my 1 hour credential presentation before we even take it any step further, because my script says I need to walk you through my 12 selling points that probably don't interest you. But, so that's how I would approach uh, this process if a client approaches me.
Yeah,
And do
sure.
the same
Well,
with
and
consulting, right?
those discussions, also those objections, those questions, those answers, those turn into great LinkedIn content.
Yeah,
Those are great things for you to talk about, because if you're having one prospect that has that problem, I bet you have a lot of prospects that are having that problem, and it will
100%.
resonate with them. Yeah. Yeah. And it's
100%.
great feedback to marketing as well, as the business developer with boots on the ground going, hey, folks, I know you say our message is this, but I'll tell you, our prospects are telling us it's something else,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we need to change. We need to evolve. Okay, that's great. Let's bring it home with top tactic number 3. What do you have?
So, again, it's a boring and it's a very simple one, Tony. It's be consistent.
Hmm.
Um, Consistent means once you define your 2 or 3 or 4 brand association, you need to communicate them at every touch point you have with potential customers, every single one, from your packaging to your shelf presence to everything, on an ongoing basis. Because while you spend a lot of time thinking about your business, most people don't think about your business as much as you do. So after like 3 or 4 weeks of posting, let's say on LinkedIn, you may start to think, oh, I'm getting bored by my own subject. I want to switch things up a little bit. Well, you may have reached 3,000 people with your post, and you didn't reach another 15,000 that haven't been exposed to your messages. And it's the same with marketing. Every time a marketing director joins a new company, the first thing he wants to do is change the advertising, change the brand, without asking what are the associations I'm creating and I want to reinforce. So be consistent in everything you do. And or even if you're bored to death, that is not even a signal for you to stop being consistent. Um, and again, it's very simple, but it's the simplest thing that are the most difficult to implement. Crystal clear clarity that is implemented very consistently. And there's a lot of science that shows us that this is what helps brands succeed. Like there's research, for example, that came up recently about the effect of advertising. And in advertising, one of the big sort of like uh, theme has always been, oh, the wear out. Advertising wears out so quickly. Well, now we have data that shows us no, that actually advertising becomes more effective the longer you air it. So a piece of advertising that works well will work even better in the second year and even better in the third year. But marketing directors and advertising agencies are like, okay, this has been on air for 6 months. We got to change it. No, that's the worst thing you can do. And the most expensive thing you can do is like, if you have a piece of communication that works, grow it. Focus on the people that are not in your current category, but continue to hammer this message in. Um, you'll never get, the consumer is never going to get tired of it, which is so as a consistency in implementation and continuity in implementation is the third one. Very basic, very simple, but that's what people don't often realize. But that's how the brain works, right? Is you tell me a piece of information, I may or may not remember it. You tell me the same piece of information 8 times, I'm going to memorize it. That's how we learn. We learn through repetition. A musician learns by playing the same piece of music 20, 30, 40 times. That's just how our brain is wired. And if you're clear about what you're trying to consumers to remember, you are clear in what to communicate. If you take a musician and you give him 40 different pieces of music to play, he'll have to play these 40 different pieces of music 40 times before he can master one of them properly. If you change every day, now play this one, now play Beethoven, now play Bach, now play this, the dude is going to be confused. He's not going to be able to play one piece or play back one piece well.
Yeah, well, I think this is so powerful, and not just for large corporations, but also, again, the individual business developer. I'm on LinkedIn every day consistently. I built it in my routine starting a year ago. and it's consistently the same message. It's all about business development.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very powerful. So let me just ask you one final thought. How can folks follow you, connect with you?
So I try to follow my own philosophy. So the simplest way is Google my name, Ulli Applebaum, and I should be popping up everywhere. The other place is really LinkedIn. That's also my main platform out there. Under Ulli Applebaum, you'll find me, and you'll find the type of content I publish. So those are the two main sources, really, where you can find or on Amazon, you can even type my name into Amazon, and my books will pop up as well. So
okay. Yeah. So listen, folks, if you want to understand these top 3 takeaways in more detail, takeaway number 1 is, understanding what that brand association should be, that brand prominence, what you're trying to build in the minds of your prospects. Understand that as your primary objective, precondition them to the brand. The second thing is that crystal clarity on what are the top 3 or 4 things you want the prospect to know when they see that logo. Automatically, their brain is pre-wired to go, oh, they do these 3 things. They do them really well. And the third key piece is consistency, over and over and over again. And that allows you to, over time, capture the 70% of growth that so many companies miss out on because they fail to execute these 3 fundamental tasks on a daily basis. Ulli, you've been fantastic and fascinating. Folks, you can connect with Ulli as he indicated. Follow him on LinkedIn. Learn more about his corporation called First the Trousers, Then the Shoes. Well, thank you for sharing today, Ulli, how to put on the trousers of brand association. And folks, grab his book on Amazon. It's 5-star rated, and it's in Kindle, it's in hardcover, and it's in paperback. And again, the name of the book is The Science of Brand Associations. Win minds, win markets. And Ulli, you've been a winner for the business development profession for so long, so many years. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. Can't wait to have you back on the show when you publish your next book.
Thanks for having me. I had a great time. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Ulli.
Thank you for listening to the Business Development Podcast. Join our free community of corporate partners and business development professionals advancing the art, science, and ethics of the business development profession at gbdassociation.org.